call the city order, all stand, place the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Britton Luther.
Present.
R.J. Downey.
Here.
Approval of minutes.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second the motion.
Discussion.
There was a, did I send you the correction? Okay, it's corrected.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of claims.
Motion to approve claims.
Second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approval of payroll.
Motion to approve payroll.
Second motion to approve payroll.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Public comment today, I would make one request. If you're here about the CO2, we'd like to have that discussion after we get through the main part of our stuff, so people here, they can leave. And so if you don't object to that, we appreciate it. So is that okay with you guys?
I have no objection to it, unless somebody has some prudent business that they need to speak before they go back to
You
work.
just want the carbon stuff later.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay, everything else.
Because we want to get, if there's some people here who want to conduct business, we don't want to hold them up so they can leave. And they can stay if they want to for the whole thing. We're just trying to make it open. So if you, public comment? Yes. Come on to the podium and give us your name, address, give us your name. And
Corey Zumwalt, 685 East Extension Street, Newport, Indiana, 47966.
okay.
I'm here to discuss about Ileana ambulance service. On July 21st, my father was having trouble breathing, and we called the ambulance, and response time was, we feel like there was a lot of mistakes that were made by Ileana. Evidently the ambulance broke down. Things, they told Park County come over. They were called off at the scene. We're just, as we hear these stories about Ileana's service, we just feel like the ambulance service maybe isn't providing the service that for the remaining county people that is required. And we just like to bring it to your guys' attention that there is issues, and we'd like to see something done about it so that there's no further incidents. I wanted to bring that to your guys' attention and see where we can, how to move forward with it, maybe.
We will have a report prepared for you, so you can view that report later.
Okay.
There has been some questioning things, and there's been some investigation done on that, but I'm not ready to comment on that, but we will get you a report on that, and we have dealt with that and seen what we can do about it. But it is, we do appreciate your concern, and it's something that needs to be addressed, and it will be. Anybody else want to?
Well, Corey, first and foremost, I want to just say my condolences and sorry for your father's loss. Have you gotten any answers at all on, the response time or how long it took, or have you got any of these answers to your questions that you've asked?
We have.
Okay.
We still feel like there were several mistakes made along the way. Do you guys want a copy of the report, or do you guys have access to the report, I guess?
We can get the report if you want.
Which report are we talking about?
Well, we have a summary of the dispatch, from Jimmy Miller. I guess he's the ambulance
911 director.
911 director. We have a copy of that we looked at, of things that we feel like maybe there were mistakes along the way.
I have a copy of the dispatch, of that report anyway.
Okay.
But I appreciate your concern and apologize. Well, like RJ said, condolences to you and your family, and we take it very seriously, and we will be looking into it further.
I appreciate that.
We will provide you with a fact finding
Okay.
of what we have.
Okay.
There's a lot of changes going on right now, I will say that.
Okay.
For the positive.
I hope
They
so,
are.
because, you know, it's not gonna help my father now, but, you know, we don't want this to continue, for
Right.
sure. You know, the maintenance of the ambulances, you know, even after, my father passed for like the next 2 weeks, it seemed like we'd see the ambulance being towed down 63, you know, it seems like it's an ongoing problem. So, we just would like for it to be addressed, and
We will address it and give you some type of report on that.
Okay.
But we are working on some things that we know need to be approved.
okay.
Yeah, well, my question is too, how do you call off an ambulance that is here? I think that's a big concern.
Right.
And they didn't even check before they called them off, and they were right there. You know, so just want to make sure that's addressed.
So we will address it and get back with you on that, and like I said, we apologize and condolences. I just can't believe what you went through.
I
It's
appreciate
hard to
it.
imagine.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Dina,
you.
I definitely will ask that question as well, because I mean, I can't answer that question, you know, like
Right.
Tim probably can't either. I'm not sure who would call off an ambulance. I don't know if that's a dispatch thing. I don't know if that's an ambulance thing.
No, it says in the report that it was called off by an Ileana employee.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And when that happened, they weren't on scene.
Well,
No.
they were in visual of us. We're out in the.
No, Park County, he's asking about
Oh.
Ileana.
The one that called it off, were they on scene when they called?
No,
No.
it was, I believe 9 minutes later before they arrived.
Oh, wow. That's, okay. Thank you.
We will get a report
Okay.
and get back
Okay.
with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in public comment? If not, for CO2?
Not CO2.
Are you sure?
Shirt says different.
Clay Sanquinetti, when he stood up here and said that, you know, it went back to 3 years ago when my dad passed away. He was in Clinton Gardens, and he had some flu-like symptoms, and they transported him, Ileana, to Union Hospital. And when they transported him to Union Hospital, the oxygen that they give him was half of what he was supposed to have. By the time he got to Union Hospital, they had to put him on a BPAP, and within 24 hours they had to put him on a ventilator, and he passed away a week later. So I wanted to throw that out there. Don't know if it means anything, but you know, I felt like I am with him, and something needs to be done about these people, and I never thought about bringing it to the commissioners. So thank you guys.
We are dealing
Thank
with
you.
different issues and working behind the scenes on some of this stuff. Anybody else that's not here for CO2? Public comment. There will be another public comment at the end, so you all will have a chance to be heard. We're moving on with St. Bernice. Grant, there's someone here on that. My microphone's on. Sorry. Anybody have a mic on? I didn't have mine on, I'm sorry. If you can't hear us, raise your hand or something so we make sure you can hear.
Good morning, my name is Brock Fortner. I'm here on behalf of St. Bernice Water Corporation, requesting that we can apply for Okra as Vermillion County being the lead applicant and us being the sub-recipient. There's no financial obligation to the county.
Who's administering the grant?
Cindy Todd will be our grant writer. She's here with us as well.
Cindy, you want to come up also? One of the important aspects of if the county is going to help sponsor an Okra grant is basically the grant writer. And do you have a resume or anything to that effect that shows how you've worked with Okra or how your grant writing experience and so forth?
Sure, I can bring one to you. I did not bring one with me today. I've been working with St. Bernice Water Corporation since they've been working on the project to improve the system, which they have, but I can definitely provide you with one.
I'm familiar with the name, but that's about the extent of it there. But
I typically work in your neighboring county, but on my personal time, I have been over helping. I helped the town of Universal with their latest water project. I was their grant administrator there as well.
It seemed to go fairly well, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm board president of Universal. We've had great experience with Sandy, so I can vouch for what she says.
Sure.
How is this repayment going to be done? Since you don't have any verification that you've got the contract, right? That you've actually got approved to do this?
This is Ochre grant, not,
This is for Okra, so we just need to apply for that.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah, that makes
the
sense.
matching funds is, I guess your question would be paid through state revolving fund?
Okay.
and it has been confirmed that the revolving fund can be used for as the match.
Yes. Is that correct?
From my understanding, you procured this, but do you have the documentation in hand now?
I do not have that documentation with me.
Well, I mean, but you have it. Have they sent you confirmation, basically, that you have received the funds from the state revolving fund? And
Yes.
I believe it's like 8 million.
Yes.
Something to that effect.
$8 million grant, yeah.
Okay.
I have no objection to approving this today.
I'll second it. Discussion?
And one other thing we would like to request is one of the first steps would be to conduct a income survey. And again, that would be under Vermillion County as the lead. So the name would be on there, but we need that blessing as well. Again, no financial obligation, but we have to provide that in order to apply for Okra.
But don't your income survey determine how much funding you get?
Yes.
It also determines the eligibility of the corporation to be able to apply. So there is a certain standard that they have to meet for eligibility with the income.
But we're guaranteed return on this money. The return on it.
The first step with the income survey is determine eligibility to actually apply. But we wanted your blessing today before we started taking those steps so that you're aware of what's going on. If the income survey meets the eligibility for Okra, then we can move forward with the application for the grant.
Who's paying your fees for the income survey?
So I am going to be assisting the St. Marys Water Company, working with the board members as volunteers to assist with this. So the water company is actually going to pay me a small stipend for my assistance.
Okay.
So we're paying for that ourselves.
That was the question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time.
School Resource Officer, Mike Colkin.
Just thanks to Commonwealth for spending time with me. I think thank you for the time yesterday of going through this whole thing, not just this, but the remainder of the project as well.
Excuse me. A couple weeks ago, South Vermillion School Corporation reached out to me about us possibly entering into a contract for our school resource officers, similar to what the commissioner signed in 2020 that we had with Union Hospital, where they would pay the county, and then the county would pay our officers. Up until we started the program, it's the school resource officer program in 2017, and up until the beginning of this school year, we worked for a private security company. Well, there were some issues there. We parted ways with them and kind of cut them out of being the middleman, and now the guys are going directly to the school. Some of the questions come up that were, who are they working for? Are they working for the schools, or are they working for us? Well, I mean, there are people, they're in our uniforms, they're working, so it just kind of made sense the more I talked to South Vermillion. It made sense for them to make it clear who they're working for, they're being paid by us, and this is a better way of going about doing it, having guys work this part-time on their days off, as opposed to if we had to fund 5 more full-time deputies to put them in the schools, because I mean, we're at a point now where we have a responsibility. We have to have these officers in the schools, so we've got to have them there, and this seemed like the most sense. But I told South Vermillion that was not a decision I could make, that any contracts to this magnitude had to go in front of you, the Board of Commissioners, for a vote. There was also a couple questions about who was maybe going to float some of the the cost for, like, you know, your Medicare, Social Security, and stuff like that. And it's my understanding, and Michael Williams from South Maine is here today, that South Maine wants to try to cover most, if not all, of that cost, if possible, so it's not any additional cost to the county.
I was just wondering, so you guys operate as in a different realm in doing this. You operate, I know it's like you did contract with these two entities, right? With the school and the hospital.
The hospital, the county has a contract with the hospital currently. There's no contract with the school right now. The guys are being basically paid as independent contractors with a 1099 right now. That's what they're trying to get away from.
And will they then be not paid by 1099, but would be entitled?
They would pay, the school would pay the county, and then the county would pay the officers for their services, just like through the payroll.
And my question is, if it go through the county, then are we responsible for the workman's compensation, all the other different things on top of that?
I would assume so, yes.
So that's something we need to determine.
Right. And like I said, South Maine wants to try to cover most of that cost if they can. They think they can, if I'm correct, Micah?
Yeah, that's correct.
But I mean, still, even if we would have to float a few extra dollars on our end, it would still save us money as opposed to hiring 5 full-time deputies to put in the schools.
I'd like to check it out a little more, give some more thought. Maybe talk about it again at the next meeting, what I recommend.
Okay.
I'm not clear on it yet, totally.
Okay.
And it's, the other two are up to them to give their voice or concern or whatever they think.
Well, I don't have any objection to it in theory. I know you cited an agreement we signed with Union Hospital back in 2020, and I think, Tim, you know, you mentioned the workman's comp liability. I think that's always going to be a concern with any agreement. But I do think it's prudent to continue to work with the schools in our local community. I have no problem, you know, approving this today. You know, but if the other commissioners want to wait or wait for more information, I don't know what information that is, but I'd be more than happy to wait as well. But I also have no objection to approving that agreement today.
I sent back a number of questions. Do you have those with you?
Yeah, I think so.
If you could address, I think there's like 8 or 9 at minimum.
One of the questions that you sent me was how we were going to do a payment, which we discussed. One of the questions was, how does the council budget for this? I don't think they would have to. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yes, they would.
They would?
Yes, they would. It would be an increase in our budget.
Even though South Maine's going to be sending us the money?
Well, we have to figure out how much all it is. You've got
Okay.
Its current costs. You've got lots of other costs in there that are not brought to most people.
And like I said, South Maine wants to try to
So if they
cover that on their end if possible.
So if South Vermillion would cover 100% of that, then essentially the council would just have to receipt that money in. So really there would be no, in theory, increase.
Correct.
I mean, the
Shouldn't be
budget
any
may go
additional
up,
cost.
but the money's going to be covered by another entity.
That's the way I understand it.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. County equipment used, our cars, which we've used our cars and our uniforms since we started in 2017, so that wouldn't be a change. Another one of your questions was, what SOPs do we have in place right now? All of our SOPs, John Spur's been working with me since the beginning of the summer. We're completely redoing all of our SOPs and getting them updated. Some of them have been updated for a few years now, so, and that's one of them, and I sent him one the other day to look at to help guide that. So right now, in years past, it's been basically at the discretion of whoever the current sheriff was on what kind of off-duty work was done or allowed. But that's one of the things that's being updated in our SOPs. One of your questions was what type of uniforms the guys wear. They'll either wear a uniform like what I'm wearing or what these guys are wearing. I'm more of a Class B type uniform, pants with the polo shirt that clearly identifies who they are. And what kind of law enforcement powers they have. I mean, they have their normal law enforcement powers that they have. I mean, they have arrest powers throughout the state of Indiana, whether they're on duty for the sheriff's department or off duty or working as an SRO.
One of the biggest problems that we have with this is the liability. An officer, who's their boss at that point when they're contracted to school and or to the hospital or to whatever entity this may be?
I would say that they would still answer to me. You know, if something horrible was to happen, I don't think it matters who necessarily, if they're an independent contractor working off duty or if they're being paid through us. I think the liability is still going to be with us. I don't think that's going to change much. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know.
Have you looked into have you talked, I called George Smith, I haven't got a call, I've not had an opportunity, he hadn't returned a call as of today anyway. Have you talked to him about our liability insurance and how that works?
When I talked to him, I talked to him a couple weeks ago, he said generally whoever's payroll they're on is where the liability is going to fall. So if they're being paid through us, the liability would fall on us.
And I believe that's probably true.
Yeah.
Have we looked at what does our insurance cover us for this type of extra work, if you will?
That was when I spoke with George, and maybe I can double check. My understanding was yes, that it would, because he said it would fall on us, just like if the guys were off duty and stopped to help somebody off duty and something happened, they would be covered as well.
No increase in our costs or no
That
riders or
I'd
anything
have
to
to
that
follow
effect?
up with that I don't know.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm not saying I'm against it at all. I just need some more clarification on some things. And if we put it
I
on the
can
agenda
give
next meeting.
George to come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And also, John, I'd like to have your opinion on the position of the county with regard to using county resources for these type events. Is this going to carry over? The other day we had Clay County officers in the county on another event. They were in their Clay County uniforms. They're using, I don't know how they came over. Are we doing the same thing out of county for that matter?
We have very little out of county off duty work that our guys are doing. We've helped with the Luke Bryan concert a few years ago. There's another concert in Fountain County they called and asked for help with, guys helped with. Guys used to work in Terre Haute a lot at the hospitals. There's very little, if any, of that going on. Maybe here or there to help out. But most of the guys off-duty jobs are here in the county: courthouse security, hospital security, and school resource officers. Which are, if they weren't there off-duty, the guys that are assigned to the road would be getting called there to deal with whatever issues would come up.
Yeah, I believe we have a kind of a community responsibility
Sure.
as well. Not that you probably need to respond anyway as a department.
Sure.
If there's an incident at any one of those two facilities. It's more in the in the secondary market, if you will, or if I have an event, I employ you to come out to run security or do whatever it might be, but I don't have a contract with you. Do you allow your officers to do that?
We do. It's always been at the discretion of the sheriff, yeah. But that's one of the things that we're going to be working with our new SOPs. That's one of the things that's going to be a little bit more clearly stated.
I'd like to see those before we really,
Sure.
where we stand with all that. I was concerned about some time ago about that, and I guess now we're there.
John's
So-
and this is a long process. There's a lot to go through. We have a sheriff's department handbook. We have a sheriff's department SOPs. We have sheriff's department rules of conduct, and then we have a county handbook. And they don't all necessarily line up with each other. So I went with him. I went to John at the beginning of the summer and said, "Hey, can I make this all one book? That's all." And he's like, "Absolutely." So he offered to help me do that, and he works on it for me a little bit every day, and I appreciate it. It's just a long process. We're just going to take a little bit forward.
I think the officers kind of rely on some of this for their income anyway.
Yeah, no,
annually
absolutely.
anyway, and it is a community service. I believe that we probably have an obligation in some way, just making sure that we cover the bases. I think when it gets to secondary things, I have probably more questions when
Sure.
it's not quasi-public, if you will.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, I can come back in 2 weeks.
Sure.
And I'll answer some of these. If you have any other questions you want me to follow up on, just email them to me or
Okay.
something. All right, thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Amendment on carbon sequestering wells, APC, Carpenter, Scott Noggle.
Kenny Carpenter, Executive Director of Area Plan.
Scott Nogle, Vermillion County Area Plan President. We're here in reference to the email that was sent to the three commissioners on August 17th, asking if the APC did the work for an amendment to our current zoning ordinance to slow down or stop the carbon dioxide sequestration wells. Would the commissioners support adopting the amendment? And due to response and lack of response that we got, we had to put that on hold because of the cost and other resources that we'd have to go through to make this amendment. And if we didn't have the commissioner support, there's no sense in doing it anyway, because you have to support, you have to pass the amendment.
I think it's not saying that we would not support, but until we see something in front of us, I can't say support, so I know what it is. And I understand your principle.
It costs money to start this. That's why we're asking if we want to make this amendment. This, where they want to put the supposed wells in the pipeline, is zoned agriculture. The wells and the pipeline are not an exception for agriculture. Okay? Everybody talks about eminent domain. Eminent domain can be stopped if it's not a public necessity or a public resource. But the Area Plan Commission doesn't have the budget or the resources to fight this company. It's going to have to start with you guys. And if we don't have your support starting out, we can't even start.
And Scott, you said that email was sent on the 17th, right?
Yes, you was the only one that replied, and you replied, yes, you would
I
support.
talked to her about it off the record, just talking to her about it, and so I support it.
I got no reply from you.
Well,
I did get a reply from Britton. He said that he had questions also into attorneys.
And I got answers back from the attorneys.
You know, if you don't give us the green light to start, we can't start, because if we started, we put the money out, we had meetings and everything, and then you say, no, we're not going to do this. We've wasted our time and we've wasted money, and that's not good stewards.
Well, Scott, I would still stand by my email on the 17th that I would support it. Granted, you need another commissioner to agree with that, but I still stand by my email back on the 17th.
Well, the big question is, nobody seemed to want to support our idea. Do you guys have a plan in place or an idea of what you want to do to get this stopped or slowed down to protect the people of the county?
Well, number one thing, I've been to the meetings. I've been there.
I've been to the meetings also.
Well, let me talk,
Okay.
please. And I've addressed this, and I've told when Mr. Morrison sent out a letter for us 3 commissioners to sign, I absolutely rejected it. I said I won't do it. I was at the EPA meeting. I requested EPA to have another meeting here in Vermilion County. They haven't responded. I've been in contact with Wabash Valley Resources about another public meeting. I've been in contact with Penny, updating her on that. That meeting will probably happen September 13th, a public meeting here in the courthouse auditorium. So there is some action to bring this to the forefront where people can interact and be able to speak.
But I think this is
But
a
the
more...
EPA's not taking any more comments. Okay?
And I don't think they've extended the deadline that we asked for the extension.
The meetings that I've been to, the only good thing I see is the people of Vermilion County gathering together to try and stop this. And I see lip service from Mr. Gupta and his company. They've been asked for things, they've been slow to reply and not reply. We're getting lip service from
Well,
them.
Scott, does the APC feel that this is a good course of action to move forward with the potential of stopping this? And if it is, that's why I replied yes in that email, because I believe that's what we should do.
We've talked to some different people outside. We've talked to our lawyer, and I've talked to an outside lawyer. With them having eminent domain, that's the thing that's really hurting us, when they got eminent domain. But it is stoppable if it's not a public necessity or a public resource. Okay, like I said, we don't have the funds or the resources to fight that. It's going to have to come from a bigger dog than us. So that's why I'm wondering, what are you guys doing to try and stop it? We'll do anything we can to help, but we're too low on the food chain to fight a big company. We've got to we have your support. You guys are looking into this, or you're not looking into it.
I'm looking into it. I want something done. I don't agree with it. I said it all along, I wouldn't agree with it. That's why I'm trying to get a public hearing, let them come. And the other thing is, people need to be held accountable. I mean, I know RJ sent a letter of support of it, and once that goes in, and once that happens, you've done, it's bad. But what I'm saying is, they have a right to come and speak their part, and regardless I agree with it or not, I have not been for this from the beginning.
And Tim, just to clarify there, and I appreciate you. I mean, you can constantly throw me under the bus for signing a letter of support. That's fine. I did sign a letter of support as I, posted a new letter on August the 17th online, which most people here understand, and most people that know me as a person understand that things can change upon more research and extensive research, which I've done. And per my signed letter, I oppose this project, which I cannot say for the other two commissioners sitting on the left and right side of me. We have the APC here today asking for support. They emailed us on the 17th, and I'm the only one that offered support for that. So, I mean, you could say I signed something in January, but here I am trying to help this, and the other commissioners haven't offered a response to the APC, a yes or a no.
I've talked to Penny off the record and told her I was
Right, you did.
I did
but
not.
that was off the record, so. And
Well,
I
mean,
told Scott,
I talk to you
but-
all the time, and we've
Right.
been in conversation about this
Yes, we
ongoing
have.
mediation.
But at the same time, my board is like, we're not gonna spend the money, invest the money, you know.
I
if
have
we
no
don't.
problem with spending the money. I just wanna know what you guys are gonna do. Give us something.
Well,
Is something funny about what I said, or?
the
No,
thing
just
about-
spending the money. We're just cautious about what we do with our budget, because as our budget has been cut, so.
What are you I've talked to two attorneys after, and effectively, the comprehensive plan is silent on it. The zoning ordinance is silent on it. According to the attorneys, with what has been passed to date, as far as the state legislature goes, and for what we have in our county planning, this is a jolly come late effect, and that an ordinance most likely will not have an effect on whether this project is a go or a no-go. Your attorney says different. What do they say?
Well,
Is your attorney here? Actually, let him speak
no,
for himself.
our attorney is not here. The
Of
big
course.
thing is, okay, everybody agrees, when they put the word eminent domain out there, that carries a lot of weight, okay? But, according to another attorney, eminent domain can be stopped. But, as I stated, the Area Plan Commission doesn't have the budget or the resources to be the ones to fight this fight.
What are you fighting? What are you going to do?
To try
What
to keep the
effect?
pipeline off of people's properties that don't want it, it's zoned to agriculture. And the wells. The plume, everything, the whole ball of wax.
We don't want any of it.
Did you say what was the amount again that you needed?
Well, if we go with the guy that's gonna redo our zoning ordinance, it's gonna be $900. If we also have a thing where if we can get somebody else to write it as an amendment, it could be cheaper. But we don't wanna start spending money.
And we're having special meetings, because you have to have your
Right.
readings and your public hearings.
Town hall.
Yep.
So
Um,
there's gonna be a lot of time involved, and there's gonna be money involved.
Back to the question, what does your attorney say? The APC attorney, that is.
He says it might start slowing things down, but it's gonna take a bigger dog than us to fight this fight. That's exactly about what he told us. He says, we don't have the resources, because if they wanna fight it, we can't.
You commissioners could.
It's gonna take some.
In what way can commissioners stop or stop anything, regardless of whether you're for or against? Where does commissioners enter into this other
How long have
than
you known about this
APC?
project, Mr. Luther?
Answer my question, please.
You are the keepers of the county. We're the keepers of the zoning ordinance. You're the keepers of the county. So you three represent the entire county. So if you three could work together and help us, the community that's in this room right now, slow this project, if not stop it, for the protection of the citizens of Vermilion County.
You're not answering my question.
Well, that is my answer for your question.
Well,
My
that's the reason
question-
why you don't have, see, there's not an effective answer here.
I'm not
You
gonna
don't-
spend money without without you guys is okay.
That wasn't the question.
I think that's the answer, is that you're willing to spend money, but you don't have a means in which that money is actually going to cause an effect. This will be a minor effect. You don't have enough money to be able to cause a greater effect, of which we don't even have that defined either. Effectively, what are you going to be able to do with that money that will actually do what the people of the county want here, or the people of the Vigo County want? Where is that money actually, what is actually going to be the effect? What is the actual mechanism that's going to cause this to happen? Spending money just to make an attempt is not worth
No.
the time or effort that we're talking this
That's why
through.
we haven't done it.
So we don't have any real idea, other than you think that you can stop eminent domain. And I don't know that you can do that either, but regardless,
I'm not saying that we can or we can't.
I am in support of doing what you need to get done, fund it. That's where I'm at.
I mean,
You say you need $900?
Yeah,
Okay.
at the most, it would be $900 at
No
the
problem.
most. It
No
could
problem
be
with
less.
me.
But I guess it would be nice to know if you guys are working on something, or, I mean,
Like I said, I've been in contact with
besides a
EPA.
meeting, besides having another meeting, is there anything going on that we don't know about besides meetings?
Well, that meeting was going to be addressing the issues here. It's going to be an official public meeting for our county. That has not happened. And I've been after them, and I've been in contact. And Penny Doe's, I've been talking to her about this all along, trying to get this worked out. And I got a phone call tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock to definitely confirm that.
So, other than a meeting, there's nothing else on the books, and no other plan?
Well, I'm planning on having, I think that we'll need to back up and figure out the responsibility, who's responsible for this. Alan Morrison and Spencer Dury both supported this.
Yeah.
And
we're
can
coming
I
to the-
finish? Can I finish?
Yeah.
And so I think that as far as legislation, if someone passed a piece of legislation, they ought to be held accountable to the people. And they ought to face the people and defend their pace. And so at that meeting, I'm asking for those two to be there to defend their decision on this.
But it's awful late in the ball game to be bringing in people now, because people got letters 2 weeks before the EPA was ready to give permits out. You know,
Yep.
nobody knew what was going on. You know, you guys knew about it for up to 2 years.
There was talk about it.
There was talk about it, rumors, whatever. Nobody else knew about it until 2 weeks before the EPA said, hey, we're holding a hearing to give out permits. You know, and it's late in the game now. If they're thinking about giving permits to just be holding
sure.
a meeting.
I want to give just some general information
Okay.
about what we're running into.
Is your mic on?
Is
Nope. Yep.
if you look at it's going to be 36-1-3-8. That lists things that a local government is not allowed to do. And one of the things that the legislature says that we're not allowed to do is that we can't regulate conduct that's regulated by a state agency. So when they wrote this new law for carbon sequestration, it's under Title 14, Article 39, which gives the Natural Resources Commission authority to regulate this. So that's likely the counter move that you're going to see if we make an ordinance or a fine or a licensing requirement to try to slow down or stop this, is their likely next move is going to be to say you're prohibited from doing that. Then when we talk about eminent domain, if you specifically go into that article at 1439(1)(3), the legislature built in a specific declaration that carbon sequestration is for a public purpose. So they've painted us into a corner on being able to do anything that a board of commissioners can effectively do. This was all done at the state level.
That's why I want the state.
I'm not saying I'm in favor of it. I'm just explaining what the problem is.
I agree with everything you're
That's-
saying. I've read this too, and yeah, we're backed into a corner.
Mhm.
There's no doubt about it.
And whether you're for or against this, it doesn't really matter. When it comes down to it, what are we spending the money for and to what effect? Back to the same question, to what effect will this actually have? I don't mind spending money if there's something that's going to come from it, but I want to know what the product is at the end that we're going to actually spend the money for. We can go down a rat hole, if you will. We can spend money here, and then all of a sudden, then we're going to spend some more money, and then we're going to spend some more money. But what is the net result of this? There's an idea, but where's this been mapped out of how this is actually going to work? Coming to an idea, speaking an idea is one thing, but actually mapping it out, where we're going to go, how we're going to get there is another matter. And that's what I'd like to see if we're going to be able to proceed forward, and we haven't seen that. I have a number of questions that are still out, 3 pages worth of questions just on the well alone. That doesn't count any of the pipeline, any of the constructions going on over there. The acquisition, I really don't like some of the things that have been said here so far, because nobody really understands the whole extent of what's been done in the last month, in the last year, and the innuendos. Part of this started back when they asked for support. And that support goes a long way whenever they're written and sent to the state and they're passing rules. And when that happens, it opens up a Pandora's box very quickly. And that has happened already. So now we're at this point of actually mapping out where are we going to go. I don't like just throwing money in the air and see where it's going to fall. I'd like to know where it's going to fall. I want to be that planned out as much as we can anyway, and I don't hear that. I don't see that. There's nothing in writing yet that even shows that. So show me a map. Show me how it's going to work. Show me the documentation of how we're going to get from here to there if that's what everybody wants to do. I can't say I'm for or against the project for that matter. There are very large concerns about it, or there are concerns about it. Those concerns, as far as I know, have not been addressed. They get some oratory there in the meetings and so forth, but my questions haven't been answered yet. I don't know that they ever will be, for that matter. So
that's why my opinion is we're getting lip service from these people. You know, they said, give us your questions, we'll answer them. And I don't think a lot of people's questions have been answered.
Mm-mm.
Well, they're obliged to publish. That's one reason why I have a feeling EPA is probably not as closed it, because they probably got a lot of questions. Maybe they're repeats, but there are enough questions that are not repeats, and they have to answer each one of those questions, or they're supposed to anyway, and then that's supposed to be published as well. So we'll see what comes from that, but they're just questions at this point. Again, if you're going to want to actually do some type of action to cause an effect, map it out. Commissioners have, everybody thinks commissioners can do anything in the county. Well, they can't. We have the roads, we have APC, we have zoning. Zoning is actually, once it's approved, goes to APC. So the only real tools that any commissioner has is the road system, any county property, of course, and the APC, if you want to propose something. Coming late into the game to do something after the fact isn't necessarily helpful either, to be able to actually cause an effect after people have already made investments. That is hard to do. It's one reason why I went to comprehensive plan. We're not done with it yet, even, or in my book anyway, we're not done with that. These are some of the things I've listed some time ago about not just these wells, but other type of wells as well, anyway. So going forward, show me a map of where we can get there, and hopefully it has some effect, or some real effect that we can see where we're going to spend the time, the energy. It's not just money. APC is going to spend a lot of time doing this. Your time is probably exceed the $900, whatever that might be. As insignificant as $900 are, where are we going? That's more important than spending the money to just start running at a target.
John, I got a question. When it comes to zoning, would the zoning on that property be able to be overridden by the state?
Yeah, that's my opinion, is the way they've written the statute is to override local government. I mean, we can still try.
See, that's what happened.
That's likely what they're going to do.
That's what we fought that battle 2 years ago, I think it was, in the State House, and luckily we got it passed on the wind and solar. And I've always been a very open proponent of being open with these companies, and that's what I did with the wind people. I said, if you're going to pass something in this county, you're going to have open meetings and let people be informed. And that's the same thing I told them. I said, you're going to have public meetings up here, come talk to the people. And so I think that them coming is a step. But like I said, I'm trying to figure out, and I have no problem even with the $900. You guys put your effort in, and you want some money to help out. I have no problem with that. The least thing we can do is put in that. And so, if there's anything we can do to help it, make that, you guys putting in effort, and I respect that.
Well,
So,
Scott, I will add too, just as a closing thing. I think the state did write these things back in 2018, and they do have a lot of control. But I also think, as a county, I don't want to say like Vigo, but if you lay down and don't do anything, I think that shows the company that they can just come in and do what they want. I think if we're willing to spend this $900, and if we're willing to, show this, and we may not be able to change it, they may still do it, but I think
say, sorry, during a public meeting that if no one wanted it, the little guy, I don't know who it was, we were at the Union Hall.
Yeah, no, Gupta.
I
He
haven't
said,
found anybody
nobody
that-
wants it. If everybody says no, they would not come.
Yeah, so I think, it's prudent for us to represent the majority of this county, and I think spending that $900, even at the end of the day, if it doesn't have a cause and effect, at the minimum it shows Wabash Valley Resources and these companies that Vermilion County's not going to lay down, they're not going to roll over, and they're going to stand up and they're going to try. You know, I wish all of us would have known in 2018 they passed this eminent domain. And I can tell you right now, I was sitting on the county council and I knew nothing about it in 2018. I knew about it in January when they asked for my letter of support, and that's the most I ever knew about it was in January. I mean, and that's a state process that we need to change, but for the short term, I think it's prudent that we stand up and do what we've continued to do. And even though, you know, I know Britain has asked for a cause and effect, but I just think it shows a good force for this county to do that and move forward. And I understand you guys put a lot of time and effort into it, but it seems like you guys are willing to do that anyway. And I appreciate that from the APC. So I still would support you in doing that and moving forward with it.
I got a motion. I made a motion to pay this, to fund this, so.
Out of, are we like paying this out of a certain account?
Can we get that to?
We have
Professional
money in our
services.
budget, we could do it.
Okay.
We just have to make it up for somewhere next year.
I make a motion, we do it, and then the
The big
$900.
question is, from you guys, is just, if we see this is a reliable thing to do, if we're chasing a pipe dream, I agree with you, Brett, and we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna throw the money out there just to grow a seed. I'm against that myself. But if we think that there's a chance that this will do some good, we gotta do some more investigating, and we still are, because we wanna be good stewards of that $900. And we think it will help, then we would like to have your support, know we have your support for adopting that.
Can I get a second on that?
So you're wanting to give them the $900? Yeah. I have no problem giving you guys an additional $900. I'll second Tim's motion.
Discussion?
I'd still
Thanks,
like to
Lisa.
know how we're gonna spend that $900. What's it going to?
What I just said. Yeah, I'll email it to you.
To legal fees, I guess,
If you don't mind.
it's
I'll
for
do that
legal
right
fees,
now.
correct? To
Yes.
investigate it, yes.
We
To
can
the
prepare
Brad
that.
Johnson Ground Rules,
To what you were
Inc.
told.
All in
We've got
favor?
A couple others.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed.
And I would like to send a postcard out to everyone in the plume, for every property owner. I'm identifying all those landowners now when we have the meeting for Vermilion County. So as soon as we can get that confirmed, I would like to get that out to
Why
them.
should you have to give?
Because I want all the citizens to know.
They were asked, and they've been asked over and over again. That's the whole point about this county. They're not being forced. Come up, speaker, you can.
I'm done, but they're active, yeah.
We, like I said, we are working on, and I have been in contact, and I've kept Penny updated about these phone calls, about what I'm doing. And effective tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, that should be confirmed. So I think that having a public meeting here in the auditorium where everybody can come and ask questions, I think is very, very important. So you all have the right to do that. So. Okay. Thank you for Scott. Moving September's meeting, I don't have no problem with that. And so the day is the budget meeting, is that correct? We're trying to move it from that Tuesday to what?
September 19th, is that right? Still 6:30? Or is it being moved to a morning meeting?
Move September 12th meeting to September 19th at 6:30 p.m. Due to budget hearings and council meeting being held the same day. I have
no objection with the move.
I have no objection.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Another one off the agenda.
That needs to be right there.
Eliana contract amendment. You have anything on that, Brett?
Just received it yesterday evening. We're not quite.
Okay.
I've not heard back.
Put it back on the.
Ileana's agreeable
Put
to
it back
it
on
yet or
for
not.
next week, next meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Should be.
The first reading of the ordinance investigation certificate of death.
I think we're still working on the draft of that.
Okay. Put it on the agenda for next meeting. Okay. Open issues, Vermilion Trails, Becky Hobart, and Tom Milligan. Is any of those? I thought Tom was here somewhere. There's Tom.
Yeah, there's Tom.
So good morning, Tom Milligan, Vermilion Trails Alliance, and so we talked last meeting about the possibility of transferring a small sliver of county property to the Vermilion Trails Alliance in order to use that as a trade for a conservation easement. on the other side. And I talked to Misty Maloney yesterday. Did she make progress then?
I think the last thing was waiting for information from you on where the tax,
And I gave her that.
If she got that, it should be done.
Okay. And so, and then Roger Azar is here right there. So if you have questions about why this, he's the man. Cause
he is, he's good.
He's good. Well, I just don't understand why exactly, but then I trust him to understand why we're doing this. It's like, that's why we hired a professional engineer that understands the workings of how to work with fish and wildlife and all that. And we've got kind of, if they will approve this trade, that's going to help us move this project along. Have I got that right? Yeah, and so if you got technical questions, I'm deferring to somebody that understands.
So the final is not here, the final.
We're close, right?
Close, right?
It's done.
It's done.
So they're going to email it to you.
Okay. And then the question, I guess, with Roger, whatever, and then from the time from you pass it, then it has to be recorded. Yes. And so, do we record? I want Roger to see it before we record it, just to make sure that it passes, passes him and everything. And
what we need is for legal to create a quick claim deed.
You want to come up here,
come on up.
Please? They like that when they do that. So.
Identify yourself.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We need legal to create a quick claim deed that transfers the property from the Commissioners to the trails, and then we can swap easements with DNR. It's an easement swap. DNR owns an easement from the railroad track down about 300 yards, and they will not relinquish that easement. It takes an act of Congress to relinquish that easement. So we created a deal with them that they've never done before. It's never been done before, which is an easement swap. So they will give us access to the property where the trail is going to go if we swap them an easement for that triangle that you guys own, which is predominantly wetlands. It's a great deal for them, and it's a great deal for us. For us, it allows us crossing that creek and getting to the trail. For them, it's protecting another wetland that could potentially be deteriorated under the in lieu fee program or the swap program. So for them, it's a great win because, hey, we've got a wetland that's delineated already. The Commissioners own it. If you parcel that to the trails, they do the swap, they get a double protection. Because right now what they have, I did a wetland delineation on the path that we want. There are no wetlands. There's riparian, but there's no wetlands. So they're swapping for wetlands, which is a great win for them. It's a great win for the Vermilion Trails, and if the Commissioners are willing to give them that 1 ± acre parcel triangle up by the railroad, I think it's a great deal.
Is there a reason why we want to retain the property as opposed to transfer that to Fish and Wildlife?
I'm not sure they want it. They just want an easement on it. Yeah.
I'm not sure we want it.
Yeah, right. Right.
Well,
I think I don't see why the trails program wouldn't want it. I mean, it's going to be predominantly tax exempt. It's a wetland. It's non-usable land. DNR gets to claim it as a win because they got 1 acre of wetland that they have an easement on. We get a win because we got our trail across the river and connecting it to the existing trail.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying, why not just give them the property also?
I don't.
Would they
never
accept it?
indicated the willingness to take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
you're talking about the little triangle, right?
Yeah.
We will still own that, or they will own it?
Well, you're transferring ownership to the trail group in order to make this swap. They would rather deal with the trail group than they would with a government entity.
Yeah.
And so that's why this is done this way.
What's your intent afterwards? Then you're going to transfer it back to the county?
Well, I think we could transfer it back to the county.
Or we leave it.
Or leave it. It doesn't.
I don't think Vermilion Trails wants to own property.
Not really, no. So I would think that we'd want to transfer it back, and I did ask John Misty to put an exclusion because the description goes clear up to the center of the trail. Well, the trail group does not want to enter in an agreement that would, where we would own the trail, so excluding 40 feet from the center of the right-of-way, and so we're trying to cover ourselves in that respect also.
To keep the trail easement free, basically.
Right.
You don't want to give DNR an easement over that trail.
And we don't want the liability of it, that the county already can accept that liability with no increase in your insurance.
Right.
I think once the deal is done and DNR secures their easement on the triangle, it could be swapped back to
Well, I think you would want to.
ownership by the county.
Yes.
And then that easement comes along with that swap, so you guys will own that easement on it. It will. It goes into perpetuity unless you extinguish that easement.
Be nice if that 3 acres all level. It's a big.
It is.
It's a big hole.
I mean, you know, I usually look at development and probabilities and options for a piece of land. That piece of land is just gonna stay what it is. There's very little value from a development perspective.
But we did get that property, and it took a little bit to get that property when we got it, and it was a rough thing, but we did get it.
So I think, Commissioners, the ball's in your court. If legal's got the paperwork done, if you guys vote to transfer that property to the trails, it keeps us going with DNR. We're hot and heavy right now. I'd hate to slow it down and cool it down, because then it takes forever for them to respond. We found a really nice lady and a nice gentleman that are willing to help us, and I just think we should keep going.
I have no problem with it.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
You guys
I have
okay?
no objection. Even though I haven't seen it yet, I trust that it's a very simple process, and in the end game it helps a bigger goal. So I have no objection keeping the ball rolling on this project.
Any objections, John, or any nuances there that you've seen?
No, just a deed.
Make a motion that we transfer the properties to the VTA, Vermillion Trails Alliance, by quick claim.
Second the motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
So just, and if anybody wants to see what we're talking about, Over the River and Through the Woods is on September the 23rd. It's a 5K run, a walk, a family-friendly event. And so you can go down, and where you'll turn around at the end of that, you look off on one side, you'll see this hole in the ground, I call it the wetland, you know. That's what we're trading, and then you'll see the creek that we've got the money to build the bridge across in order to get the trail out across the river bottoms to a public crossing where people then can, the trail will not end at the CSX, the trail will go on a public crossing out into the world. So if you want to see what we're talking about, that'd be a great opportunity also to support the trail groups right there through this fundraising event. So there's
Can you explain that a little bit, that
that's my
event?
shameless plug for the...
That is the run over the
yes,
river?
that's the 5K, Over the River and Through the Woods. There's online sign up. If you Google like Over the River and Through the Woods 5K, you will come to the online sign up. And
How many did you have last time?
I'm not sure, maybe, if I'd say it'd be wrong. We do not, I talked to Lynn last night, there's only 10 people signed up.
I mean the last one.
Okay. If I'd say it'd be wrong, so I'm not going to give you a number that's not right. We had a successful event the last time. Our sign-up has not been as stellar as what we are looking for. That's why I'm up here making the shameless plug for that event.
September 23rd?
September the 23rd.
Well, Tom, could you send us a flyer to
Sure.
to Brendan? We can send it out to at least the all county email. Maybe
Absolutely.
send it to all the governments, and maybe challenge elected officials to go run or walk in it or something.
Walking is fine. You can bring your dog, you can push your stroller, whatever it is.
I would like that flyer. I'll send it in Montgomery and Fountain County too.
Sure.
Get new people coming in.
All right. Well, thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Since he mentioned public events, Saturday we had the Wabash River Run, and appreciate Mark O'Hare and all the emergency management helping. We had 79 boats, up from 50 to 60 to 79. Great event, raised a lot of money for the main shelter, and we'll have it again next year. But I want to say thanks, Mark, for emergency management and all what you guys did. Did a great job. State Road 63 and a property NDOT agreement.
NDOT has got the county owns a piece of property or parcel that underlies the bridge basically, and accordingly, in order to effect the repairs to the bridge at 163 in Burlett's Creek, they were wanting an easement to be able to, a temporary easement to, or construction easement to be able to effect those repairs. they're offering $1,000 effectively to use that property. So it's,
They just need our blessing.
you know, we either agree with the easement or we don't, and I don't know. The only thing that we might do is put a stipulation that it affects the bridge as currently proposed, as the 2-lane, that they don't change the scope of the project.
So you making a motion to approve this?
Make the motion to approve the easement with stipulation that it is associated with the current project as currently described.
Second the motion.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
63 Bridge South, 234 status, comment.
So, yeah, NDOT had sent out maybe not NDOT, it's their firm they're using. I'd have to look at the paperwork now. I believe it's a 2027, 2028 project. NDOT is looking at taking the bridge out south of the 234 intersection. They have a couple plans. First option was to fill it completely back in with dirt, and the second option is to do that as well, but put a tunnel type structure in. They'd approached the commissioners, I don't know, a year ago, and asked the county to foot that bill for the tunnel, which I believe all of us spoke about and said it was just not prudent to do. So they'll be holding, I requested a public hearing for that. So they'll be...
Since you're on that, I'm going to say something real quick. I met with town of Cayuga and tried to get interest of town of Cayuga and people involved in keeping that open and making a trail, and it didn't go nowhere. So I haven't had enough public input to try to keep that open. Simple as that. So.
Yeah, so I requested a public hearing to allow citizens to come ask questions. You know, there's questions like why aren't they taking the grade or the hill down to grade instead of leaving all the way up. There's also other questions like why doesn't NDOT or the state of Indiana pay for that structure to keep it open to the river. Governor Holcomb's real big on trails, and they allocate millions of dollars every year. I think it'd be something simple for them to just pay for that structure. But anyway, that'll be announced, I'd say in the next few months, if not 6 months, or where that public hearing will be. So be on the lookout for that.
County Highway Organization, some of you might or might know, since you're all here, might as well tell you. We've been working for several years of getting a county engineer. And in the last 2 years, we've been working with Jim Meese and I have been working on to get a shared engineer. The state of Indiana will approve $40,000 a year if you hire an engineer for the funding. And so what we met with the state and worked out an agreement that we can put our two $40,000 together, and then probably for another $35,000 a split, we can have an engineer part-time for around $40,000 a year, $50,000. So it's a big thing we need to bring more professional services to our county and our roads and streets and bridges. So that's ongoing. Hopefully we'll have something done here for long on that. Unless, Brett, you got anything else you want to comment on?
We've had some interest as filling the position.
Yeah,
we'll have to see how that goes.
It's a very positive thing for Vermilion County. Vermilion County Bicentennial, you got any more interest in that? Anybody come forward and say they want to do it?
Nobody's had any interest in it other than yourself. Nobody's come forward.
We'll wait for someone to come with a torch and say I'll do it then. Announcements. County festivals and events. Health Department, you want to give an update on that, Brett, because you've been overseeing that.
Health Department started its move. Internet and so forth is going in today. They'll effectively be shut down tomorrow, and they'll be moving everything over with the Board of Health coming back online September 5th, the day after Labor Day. So they should be at their new location, which is the annex across from the current hospital. And the coroner will also have an office there as well.
The Lilith Festival, September the 1st, the 4th, they had a bad fire downtown last night, down at the poorhouse.
700 South Main.
Also, Newport Hill Climb, September 29th, October the 1st. And as I said, the Wabash River Run was a big success, raised a lot of money, increased our boat numbers in emergency management, and all those volunteers were a tremendous asset, so we've done very, very well. Okay, we get to public comment. When you come up to the podium, address, tell us who you are, and we'd like to limit to 3 minutes, because there's a lot of people here who want to talk, and we want to try to give everybody a chance if we can.
Clate Sanguinetti.
That's C-L-A-T-E.
C-L-A-T-E, yes, sir.
Okay.
So I got a question. Has either three of you commissioners been to any meetings with Wabash Valley Resources for anything? Just one-on-ones or?
No, the ones I've been to, the ones you're at.
Okay, I didn't know if
And the
anybody
one
had
at
been to
EPA
any
and Terre Haute.
one-on-ones or anything like
No.
that with them.
No,
2 years ago, I was at one with but not with Wabash Valley, but with their manager.
Okay, Nolan.
I have been
Gupta,
working.
I'd have to look up the name, I don't recall.
I have been in communication with Greg Zeller, the vice president, arranging this meeting. And there's another lady called Kathy Parker that runs, and them's the two I've talked to.
Yeah, there's some woman I've spoke to on the phone. I requested additional information, and I still have not received that to date. Whether it's email or text, I've requested lots of information and still haven't received it.
Okay.
But I've never met any of them personally.
Yeah. Okay, just checking. Another thing, RJ recently wrote a letter, and it's been through our group, Concerned Citizens Against Wabash Valley Resources, and against it, and there has been a lot of people praising over that because nobody in Vigo County, no commissioners in Vigo County have done anything like that, sent a letter out like that, and we really appreciate it because this is about our water, for one, our aquifers, and it's also about, you know, our future generations coming up. But you know, Wabash Valley Resources has continuously tried to paint this pretty picture, and I don't know how they can do it because they get up there and they say, you know, 180,000 wells, but there's only 2 Class 6 wells in the USA, and that's what they're wanting to put right here. You know, 2 Class 6. All the other Class 2 wells, you know, they're wanting to...
You say there's only 2 Class 6 wells?
There's only 2 Class 6 wells active in the United States today, and then that's what they're going to put down here. Okay?
I think they're trying to compare it to any injection well in the United States.
And it's not the same. So, you know, the Class 2 wells, they're using carbon to push out oil and natural gas, okay? They're not pushing anything out here. They're just injecting. There's nothing coming out. That ground pressure is pushing, you know, and it's got to displace the saline solution, whatever different things in that pore space there. It's got to push that stuff out. I've had a few people wanting me to start like a GoFundMe and see if we can get some legal representation. I don't know, it'd take a lot of money to fight this, but as long as, you know, and I do want to thank you too for approving that $900, because that means a lot. And you know, if it buys us time as citizens to fight this, because we're going to try to fight this any way we can. But you know, I know the county's wasted $900 on a lot of other stuff. You know, $900 is just pocket change. So
we spent millions on a lot of things. You know, $900 is pennies in the bucket.
And if it buys us time, it's worth every penny. You know what I mean? Because that's what it's going to take is time. And there's going to be different phases. There's going to be more permits. This ain't over. There's going to be all kinds of things in the eminent domain. It can be fought. So we're working on that. I don't want to waste anybody else's time. I know there's some people up here wanting to get to talk, so I'll be quiet.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next. Mr. Universal.
I just want to say thank you for approving the $900. I don't have much to say, but I wanted to point out recently in Iowa this is going on, and the judge has ruled parts of this carbon sequestration pipeline surveying because they're going into people's yards and you know, mapping things out without their permission. And this judge has ruled it unconstitutional. So there may be a legal fight in this. The Institute of Justice has a big handout on finding eminent domain. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go about it, and I think it's best that we stick together and try to fight it off. This is scary stuff. The more I read about it, the more scared I am. And it's both sides of the political spectrum in Washington and the state that's involved in it. So I think we all need to come together and do something, and I thank you for listening and approving the $900.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, my name's Tracy Wilson, and I live very close to where one of the well sites gonna be. My question is, how long did you know that they were wanting to put those wells in our county? One well. How long did you know that? How long?
I think they called me late last fall. That's when Alan Morrison called me and sent me a thing. and
Alan Morrison?
Alan Morrison, and I said I was in favor. And that's the first time I heard about it.
Mine was January, as I previously stated in the meeting.
Probably the last fall.
But you said 2 years ago you had a meeting.
Had a meeting 2 years ago, but we didn't discuss a well or a location of wells.
Because I feel like the only reason that we're a little bit behind, although we do still have plenty of time and we will not quit, is because we didn't know about it until like the plans were already in motion. And I don't know who or how somebody probably should have told us that, so that we had somewhere to stand before now, that we didn't want this company, coming in and injecting stuff in our county, especially that close. Dumping.
Well, and I will say, when the state does stuff, no matter what states you're in, these legislators, when there's super majorities on either side of the aisle, Republicans or Democrats, like in 2018, me and Mr. Luther here, we weren't sitting at this table, and I can assure you now that a lot of things that get passed in the state, counties aren't notified. Our Association of County Commissioners, they do a good job of keeping us in the loop on certain things, but in 2018, I couldn't tell you if anybody in Vermilion County government were notified. As a council member, I wasn't, and Tim can attest, he was here, he probably wasn't notified. And it's unfortunate, because if we were, I think this showing would have been at the State House. There would have been a lot more things going on. But it's unfortunate because it's in all realms of government. They pass things and then ask for forgiveness after the fact. So it's very unfortunate.
I think the first time was that all this came to light for the most part is when Alan Morrison said it requested a letter of support for the project. I'm not sure it even addressed the wells at that point, even though it may have. I'd have to go back and look at that. Actually, I didn't receive the letter. He called and asked for support. I think I saw a letter at a later date. I don't recall that. Do you know if it had the well information?
I'd have to read. That was back in January. I'd have.
It's more of an economic development.
It was
letter,
definitely an economic impact, because that was a big part of the letter. But yeah, I'd have to go back and read it.
Vigo County was more involved.
Well, they're bigger.
They were more involved with the project because the project starts in Vigo County. I think if you look at when Vigo County knows about it is prior to when Vermilion County would have found out about it. They passed tax abatements and things to that effect. So they knew something about it long before we did, or the particulars anyway.
And the part I didn't understand, and I'm sorry to ask this again, but I didn't catch it really because the zoning is agriculture, and so why are they able to? Because of what passed at the State House?
Yeah, that's why I addressed the question to our legal. That's what.
So, if you want to look it up, it's 36-1-3-A, and that statute contains a list of things that local government is not allowed to do. And one of the items on that list is we cannot regulate conduct that is regulated by a state agency. So when the legislature wrote the statute that allows for carbon sequestration, they gave the authority to regulate carbon sequestration to the Natural Resources Commission. So in response to discussion about could we maybe charge a permitting fee and try to stop them from doing it with a permit? Could we make an ordinance that says they're not allowed to do this? Very likely their argument is going to be you're not allowed to regulate that because the legislature specifically put a state agency in charge of it. Not saying we still can't try, I'm saying there's very likely a counter move already built in to stop us from doing that.
There's a lot of showing from Vermilion County. We're really trying, like I said, we're not gonna give up. We don't want this, we don't want it injected into our land. We're just glad that, you know, as much as, you know, we needed coal, you know, finally, you know, Peabody was gone, and my family was coal miners, so, but, now some of that natural, you know, land is coming back, like it's supposed to, kind of. And now there's somebody else coming in to Vermilion County and wanting to damage our environment again. And
Something we all work hard to keep.
to keep, right. You know, my family did not sell out to Peabody. And again, my family has many of coal miners in it, so don't think I'm against coal. But my family didn't sell the property. I just can't, you're displacing something when you're injecting something in the ground, and they try to, you know, just make it look pretty, and there's going to be jobs, and there's going to be, you know, you're safe, and, you know, there's only 20 years of research on these injection wells.
4,700 micro earthquakes in Decatur since they started their wells.
I'm putting this out. We care. We really care. That's why we're here. We're not here to, we just are not going to give up on this. And we want support from our county, and we appreciate the support that we can get.
Like I said, September 13th, is that the date I told you? That will probably happen. That meeting will be here in the auditorium.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Next, anyone else? This is your time. Mr. Kelly's here today.
My name is Mike Kelly, and I live in Fairview, at 317 East 2nd Street, and I worked at Newport for 10 years, and I ran the rainy wells and stuff. My concern is that we've gotten rid of the powerhouse because of the carbon output from the coal. We've got, or we're going to eventually phase out this other coal-fired powerhouse because of the carbon. Central Nitrogen has left Terre Haute, the manufacturer of it has, because of the waste and the air pollution standards are tighter. So now I think they're just looking for a place to put carbon that has no defense. They increased the air standard, but they didn't look at the ground quick enough to pass laws to keep it from putting it on the ground. My main concern is, by working at Newport, I ran the rainy wells and stuff, and I talked to the engineers that were there, Corps of Engineers, showed me the maps and everything. And we have the largest aquifer in the eastern United States, and it's clean, all right? It's potable water, and it's bigger than all the Great Lakes put together. So now we're willing to come along and make carbon. I don't know whether they realize we've gotten rid of the carbon into the air, and now we've got a plant that wants to come in and make nitrogen. That's great. You know, sounds good to the farmers, and anhydrous ammonia, and they want to make hydrogen, which is dangerous. And the byproduct of that is this carbon that we tried to stop putting in the air. So now they're going to concentrate it by turning it into liquid, which takes 2,100 pounds of pressure. They're going to transport that over an 11-mile pipeline across people's ground pipes up in the ground and across the guy's lake. And he was just notified in the last meeting that he had no idea they were going to do that. If you get a hole in this pipe, it will shut down quick because the pressure will start to change, okay? They've told us that. But it also will create quite a crater between the two valves that are closed before, and when it's released, it hovers on the ground, so it displaces air. So anyone in that area, or any animals or anything that's in that area, will die because they'll have no oxygen. Cars won't run,
so you don't get in the way. They have no way of stopping that, I mean, other than closing those valves. The other thing is, to make a, well, analogy, I guess, not a very good one, but you have this carbon being pumped into the ground through the deep wells into what they call a brine layer under the rock. And they have no idea, there's nobody but the Almighty that can tell them if that rock will ever crack or break. And they're pumping it into these plume areas that they call. They know that it's going to be very concentrated there, but it also goes on out beyond that because it's under 2,100 pounds of pressure. There won't be any pressure on the well when it goes in because it'll start dispersing. But it's going to disperse under that rock layer, which is, they call it bedrock. It's really a denser limestone. And it's going to go under that, under our aquifer. Now it will poison the aquifer if it gets in. Now there'll be two holes that it could come back up and poison the aquifer too, but they haven't mentioned the two holes are digging. It can go either way. If an earthquake came or something broke that line, the township water wells are in it, Fairview's water wells are in it, Clinton's water wells are in the aquifer, Paris water is in that aquifer, and it goes over to Paris, and Paris is going to sell almost all the way to Danville. So all of these people are involved with the aquifer. The all the way to Lafayette, they're sending water out of the same aquifer.
We need to limit your time. I'm not trying to interrupt it, but with other people.
Okay, I'm just trying to say, these are all eggs in the basket. And anytime something happens, or if it cracks or whatever, if something would happen, the aquifer's contaminated and they can't fix it. I mean, they dropped the basket and broke every egg in it. And it's not repairable. I can't imagine why the EPA or the DNR or would allow anything like that to be pumped under our aquifer, even if it's got a rock layer between them. I'll shorten it up a little bit because I just wanted to let everyone know here, this is not repairable. And at the bottom of their statement, it says they're not liable or for any damages or any to the aquifer or to anybody getting hurt. They're not liable at all. They're passing that on to the communities, the liability. I'm not real good at this, so I hope I got my point across and get these other people involved, EPA and the others. They can't just sign off on that. And I have maps that show from them that it goes under there. So I said my piece now. Okay.
Thank you.
Hope that informs you.
Who's next? I will be available after the meeting if anybody wants to talk to me. I'll gladly meet with you. I'll give you my phone number, whatever you want.
Hello, sir. Nancy Roberts. I live at 17777 South 200 West, behind the Union Training Centers. First, I want to say, Commissioner Donovan, it takes great courage to rescind on something that you sent, and I really, really appreciate that. You did generate a lot of on Facebook. You said that the commissioners have control over the roads. There's only 2 pieces of property that they need in Vermilion County to put this pipeline in, the direction it's coming. They already have their memorandum of option on where they want their well, and they have a backup plan for that if that would blow open. So the only 2 pieces of property, these people already have their contracts, they already have their lawyers looking at their contracts. If you have control over the roads, can you stop them from tearing up the 2 county roads, from crossing the 2 county roads to get to where they want to put their well, which would be 200 and 1800?
That'd be a legal question for them.
Or does that fall under this
As
code?
far as stopping them from tearing up the roads, yes, typically there would be an agreement by any, like a solar project or when they looked at windmill projects, there's an agreement to put the roads back and maintain them. Now, could we
Say
Could we
absolutely
destroy
not.
a road and say nobody can drive up and down it? I think we would get into an arbitrary and capricious
I guess
problem
maybe I worded that wrong.
with
It's
that.
not that it's destroyed.
We could certainly prevent them from tearing up a road, but they could still use the road.
Okay. Can you prevent them from crossing, taking the pipeline across the road?
I doubt it.
Okay, that was my question.
The way the statute is written, I would
That's what I
doubt it.
wondered.
Again, we could try, but I think they've built in some automatic things that they can do to counter the things that a local government might do.
So even if we would deny like a cut permit or something, the eminent domain would.
I think they would probably sue us and say that we're behaving in an arbitrary and capricious manner by closing the road
Yeah.
just to do something that the legislature's already said that we can't do. Again, we can try it.
Yeah.
I just think they've been careful to build in counters to.
My other concern is for future generations, as we've all spoke, if we don't get this stopped and it goes forward and they do what they're doing, they already said that after 12 years or at the end of 10 years, they can go ahead and apply for another permit to keep doing it. Okay, the well in Decatur in May of this year, they just approved for the sequestration of CO2 to be pumped under city property in Decatur, Illinois. And they're going to pay them $450 an acre to do that. What stops them? I mean, once they get it started, what stops it? Where does it go? And if it continues, you're going to be dealing with a whole lot more people than just in the 2-mile radius. And they specifically asked, the lady from Illinois specifically asked, will it go into Illinois? And they said no. He said flat out no. Where they're going to put the well is 1 mile from my house. And as the crow flies, I'm probably less than a mile from the Illinois state line.
Yeah.
So that was a flat out lie.
I would say the only thing that stops these companies from doing that is, you know, if the subsidies dry up from the federal government. You know, like any other federally subsidized project, these people are looking to make money. And as long as those tax abatements and, you know, dollars are there, I think it'll probably continue, just like, you know, whether it's wind or solar or any project. Because a lot of these are not viable. You know, we own a small restaurant and we're not subsidized anyway by federal government. And, you know, I envy people, I guess, that, you know, get all this free money. They're just going to go out and, you know, do these projects and they really don't care because they're paid to do it, basically. You know, so I think, you know, the bigger picture in a lot of this is electing new leaders in different areas and making sure they represent the people. You know, and making sure they, you know, do things a lot different than how they done it this past time in 2018, you know, behind closed doors and just didn't notify anybody. It's very unfortunate how the whole thing went down.
It's just crazy that we didn't get our letters until after the initial permits were signed. And basically, and they mentioned, for all you guys that was at the meetings, they mentioned several times, we wrote the bill, 451. This company wrote this bill, this company paid for this bill at the state level, and they didn't even consider. They didn't even consider. And I know this statute has really blocked all of you guys too, but I mean, as outrageous as we are for this being done on our property, you guys ought to be more so, because they're taking all control for your citizens, the sake of your citizens, out of your hands. I mean, something needs to change. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Brandon Ruth from Cayuga. And I just want to talk about billions, I guess, for a minute. I talked about this a little bit at the general meeting they had. So the output per annum of CO2 in the United States is about 5 to 6 billion metric tons of CO2. They hope over 12 years to sequester 20 million. So it's not a solution for CO2 to remove from the atmosphere. it's not supported, this general idea of sequestration, it's not supported by environmentalists. It's not a good solution. It's just not, it continues dependence on fossil fuels, so they don't agree with it. It's not something they support. And then obviously on our side, we don't support it because they're basically poisoning the ground. So it's supported by money, and that's the other billions. So what they look to make because of their 45Q tax incentivization, which came from the Inflation Reduction Act, they look to make $85 per ton. So that calculates out over the 12 years to something like 1.5, all up to maybe $2 billion. So billions of dollars they stand to make from those tax incentivizations. Probably billions they stand to make from the anhydrous ammonia that they're producing also. And then the cut for the locals that have this poison put into the ground where they're living, where they're trying to raise their families, is $105 per acre per year.
No money.
It doesn't make sense. It's parasitic. It's a parasite coming. Again, it's a special pilot program too, so we have to be aware of that also. So there's the House bill, HR 1209, that was passed in 2022, has a 70% threshold for these sorts of projects. So going forward, if this happens somewhere else, there would be a threshold. So if 70% of the people where this is going to affect don't agree to it, it doesn't happen. This is a specifically exempted, purchased pilot program that was exempted from that. So that's why they're basically just going carte blanche without any brakes. There's nothing to stop it, at least seemingly. But yeah, it's parasitical. It's just money. It's money. They come in, do it for 12 years, they're gone, no responsibilities, pockets full. Good luck with your aqua, right? And that's just despicable. It's despicable. So that aside, if something like this, because I'm worried about the plant in Newport, it shuts down in a few years. The same parasites, if I'm keeping my same terminology, if they look at that, that's another potential site, right? So we have to keep in mind that 70% threshold, and we have to be, as a county, here, Vermilion County, we have to be much more aware of these kind of machinations behind the scenes. And I rely on the commissioners to help us with that. That if you know these sorts of things are going on, you're approached by people, whatever, that we the citizens get informed as quickly as possible so we don't have to react so much, so we can be proactive about trying to stop this. Okay? Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Mr. Chance.
When we was up here and we talked about the eminent domains rules, we said it was for a public necessity or a public purpose, and you said they declared it a public purpose.
Yeah, they wrote that into the statute.
Okay. How can a private company that's going to make millions of dollars off the federal government, how does that meet a public purpose? I mean,
because the legislature wrote into the law that it's a public purpose. So they defined what that company is doing as being a public purpose. Whether that's right or not, I'm not offering an opinion. I'm just saying that's what our legislature did.
Would it have to meet both necessity and purpose both?
Without doing some research, I don't know.
Okay.
I just know it appears they took that into account when they wrote the statute to try to make it harder to stop.
Okay, thank you.
So. Anyone else?
There's a lot of this we've talked about at some of the meetings. The emergency part of it is for the schools and
Identify yourself.
Oh, Penny Carpenter, 6773 North Vermilion Drive, Cayuga. So they have no idea what they're doing, and we as citizens need to take this to the voter box because we were sold out by Alice Morrison and John Ford and some other name I can't think of right now. We need to get out and vote. We need to get people aware of what's going on. I know there's strength in numbers, there's strength in knowledge, so I appreciate you guys all coming out today.
Anybody else?
Sorry, I thought of one other thing. Part Nancy Roberts again, part of the problem with this company has so much money backing it. The 2 pieces of ground that they're trying to put the pipeline over in Vermillion, which is half a mile from my house. They mentioned at one of the meetings, and Clayton, I think you can confirm this, 20,000 an acre is what they mentioned. 25?
It was 20,000 an acre for pipeline.
For pipeline.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, here's this farmer who's got some ground that all he does is plant a crop on it, that sometimes the crop, it's Reclaimed Mine Company, and sometimes the crop works and sometimes it doesn't. And they're offering him $20,000 an acre to put a pipeline where then he can continue to try to farm. They have so much money backing them up that's part of the issue. So I was trying to figure out how many tons 1 acre of ground can store. And there was all different kinds of answers, so I really couldn't figure it out. But if you figure they're trying to give us, what, $100 an acre? And it can store, at one point I read it could store like anywhere from 10 to 30 tons. Break that down. Break that down.
It's 1,200 an acre, 2 mile plume.
The revenue that they had to the state set on that was terrible. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
At the very
I mean,
first
$1 billion
meeting.
going to ground or giving $120 an acre. I mean, them
Right.
people ought to be rich if they do that.
Right. Well, and Greg Sollers kept saying 40% of what the Purdue extension, he kept bringing that up when he was there. At the first meeting at the Union Center, Gupta said, well, at least 160 an acre. He said a lot of things, if you notice, he wasn't at the meeting at Fayette.
And where we live isn't farm ground, it's our residence. And
Yes.
that residence is worth a whole lot more
It
than
is.
farm ground.
It is. And they mentioned at the meeting in Fayette that, if I understood them correctly, that your payment for your ground being used, you would not get it until the plume reached your ground.
Until you're saturated. So you could wait 5 or 6 years on
Yes.
it if you're on the outside of the plume, and these people are
And not
thinking
even
they're
see
going
it.
to make $300,000, and they're probably going to only make about 80
Right.
by the time it's all said and done. So there's a lot of
Right.
false.
But in the meantime, you've had that poison under your ground before not that money's going to make a difference, but before you're ever being paid for. I mean, think about all of it. Think about all of it.
Thank you. Anyone else on the closed meeting?
I'll take a stab at it. Name's Jim Beckering, I'm from Clinton. You're talking about, we've been talking a lot about the money that's involved in this for people, but in eminent domain. And I'm here just to ask everybody, don't sign anything, force them into eminent domain, make them go through that process. It's not about the money, it'll never be about the money. Just don't give in to them, force them into that choice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Limit your talk to about 3 minutes. We're getting close to being done.
Shirley Downs, Dana, Indiana. I was just trying to, I'm sorry, Shirley Downs, Dana, Indiana. I was just trying to understand what Brandon said, that the project that they're trying to work on now is specifically mandated by state. But if they try to do another one, then people within if 70% of the people within that area, if they stand together, then it cannot be.
If it doesn't reach a 70% threshold of people working in conjunction with the company allowing it, then it wouldn't pass under House Bill 1209. This is a specific pilot program that's exempt from that.
Right.
And this specific project it's in the legal documentation, the name of the project. I mean, you talk about
Specific.
very specific. They
My
knew
heart
exactly
goes
what
out.
they wanted to do for it.
They have exempted Vermillion and Vigo from everything.
And that was my question, if it was the whole county or just this one project. But it's the project for Vermillion and Vigo County right now that's working together. So that's sort of clarification, so thank you. Praying for you all.
As I said before, this next meeting coming up, I'm asking those who wrote the bill to be here.
I don't think you'll get that one.
Well, I'm just, it's gonna be, I'm gonna ask them both to come, and I think that if they pass the legislation, they ought to be able to face the people who they affect. And I think that's the time that you need to ask those who did it. And so, but any other comments before we close this meeting? Like I said, I'll give you my number. If any of you want to call and talk to me, I'll give you my number, and call me at any time. If you want to stay and wait and talk to me, or talk to the other ones, it's fine too.
I think maybe one comment. You know, it took legislation to get us to this point, primarily to identify this pilot program. The thought would be is that you could take legislation also to do something different than the pilot program, or to take the pilot program away. I'm not sure a lot of the direction we're going with some of these things is necessarily going to have a net positive result anyway. But I think people need to start thinking about other alternative methods of, there's a system here, in my thoughts anyway, there's a system here, and it's a matter of using that same system as to how you want a net result to come out. And I'm not sure where we're going with some of these things, that it's going to be something that you're going to sit down a year from now or some period of time and say that you got what you had hoped to get or you wished to get. So maybe your thought patterns need to change a little bit and think about what can actually cause an effect here, as opposed to trying to put barricades up or whatever that can be tore down, or whatever the case may be. But just a thought, maybe some different type of thinking. Sit back and reflect on what has happened, how did it happen, and if it happened that way, could it not happen a different way, in a different manner. So, just a thought. Anyway, pleasure.
Any other comment? Someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.